This is just quackery, really. This is like snake oil, salesman stuff. It's like, here, try this, it's going to be really good. And you try and go, well, it's not, it's not silver bullet, I didn't say it was going to be a panacea, did I? When you get worse and worse and then eventually die.
You're a mum now, and you have to be a good mum, and I have to remind you every second that you're a mum. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to kill this person.
But if you want to go into statistics, which people do, it's really, really on a hiding to nothing. Because statistics on their own are extremely incriminating.
Hello and welcome back to Last Orders. I'm Tom Slater, editor of Spiked, joined as I am in every damn episode by Chris Snowdon from the IEA. How are you doing, Chris?
Very well.
And we're also delighted to be joined by Candice Holdsworth, the writer and broadcaster, returning to the show. How are you doing, Candice?
I'm good.
So we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about BOGOFs. We're going to talk about the over-regulation of the countryside. We're going to talk about energy prices. There will be a Lucy Letby Corner. But Chris, before we get to that packed schedule, shall we give another plug for our live show, our live edition of this podcast at the Battle of Ideas?
Yes.
Sunday
Come along, folks.
It's going to be great. Sunday the 19th of October.
That's right.
It's in Westminster.
Mm-hmm.
You can get 20% off with the promo code SPIKED.
Amazing. What a deal.
Absolute steal. So far, we have Dominic Frisby confirmed. We have Patrick Christys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And
a lot of
one
audience.
other special guest.
Exactly.
TBC.
We're going to keep that secret until the very last moment. So if you want to get your tickets, not just for our show, but get a ticket for the whole weekend. It's a fantastic festival. We're there every year. We'll be speaking on other panels as well, along with many other Spike contributors. Go to battleofideas.org.uk to get your tickets and remember that promo code SPIKED. So, Chris, let's talk about BOGOFs, or buy one, get one frees, as people might otherwise know them. This was a ban on these promotions, which was originally ushered in by the Conservatives.
Of course it was,
as
always.
Has now come in under Labour, and another nanny state policy that you've been railing against for many years and has now effortlessly made its way onto the statute book. Do you want to tell us a bit about this policy and what you think it's going to achieve, if anything?
I don't think it's going to achieve anything, but I'm happy to be corrected in the fullness of time. People talk about BOGOFs on junk food, but it's a bit misleading. It's not just buy one, get one free. I don't think you even see many buy one, get one frees. Do you? Well, I don't know. I don't see any on Tesco's. But then Tesco's is fairly woke, so they might have brought this in.
There's a lot of 2 for 3s, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so all these things, like 3 for a tenner, something like that.
They're all included in this, yeah.
Any kind of volume price discount, as they say, is banned now for not junk food, because there's no such thing really, just an arbitrary list of products which exceed arbitrary levels of sugar, salt and or fat. And this has been kicked into long grass many, many times. I think it probably goes right back to Theresa May, actually, maybe even Cameron, possibly. And it never happened, along with the advertising ban and all the other stuff which is now happening, never happened. And then Boris Johnson got COVID and decided that it was because he was fat, and therefore let's have this raft of policies. Also, we had the highest COVID death toll, I think, at the time, and there was an element of like, look over there. And also, like, blame yourself for being fat. I think there's a bit of it.
It's the buy one, get one frees that got you into that.
Exactly. So,
ICU ward.
So Johnson then announces he's going to definitely do this. And then 2022, when it's supposed to come in, there's a cost of living crisis, very high inflation. And the government thought, well, this is going to look bad, because clearly the obvious, unintended consequence of this policy is that people are going to end up paying more for the food, basically, because there'll be a whole bunch of bargains you can no longer access. Public Health England accepted this way back in 2015. They said, we've noticed in the past when there's periods of high inflation, shoppers use these deals as a coping mechanism, their words, not mine. And if people bought all the stuff that they buy on promotion at full price, it would cost them another £600 odd. So everyone knew this was going to hit people in the pocket, but no sacrifice is too great to attempt to reduce childhood obesity by a little bit. So it gets postponed in 2022. Liz Truss then tries to ditch it, but then obviously she got ditched instead. 2023, Rishi Sunak postpones it for the same reason, cost of living. And then Labour came in and said, well, we're going to do all this stuff come hell or high water. So, I forgot it was actually coming in on the 1st of October, but of course it did. I don't think people are going to notice much different. I'd be interested to see what the response is from the supermarkets, because there's an obvious way of getting around a buy one, get one free thing, which is half price, right? The government isn't actually, even this government isn't ready to bring in price controls. So you can still discount products. You just can't sell more than one at a discount. So it probably, hopefully, won't have very much effect. But then that will just mean, let's do the next thing, It doesn't matter whether these things work or don't work. If they do work, or are seen to work, people go, oh, let's do more things like that. And if they don't work, people go, oh, we need to do more things then. So you can't really win. You just have this like endless, runaway train of regulation, whatever happens.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about this, Candice? Are you mourning the demise of the buy one, get one free?
I just think it's a form of Puritanism. People who just, I promise you, there are just people who have this aversion to indulgence, and they see stuff like that and they really don't like it. They think people are being lazy, they're eating unhealthily, you have to remove all temptation. We've seen various incarnations of this throughout history. I mean, with the whole temperance movement, back in the 1920s, and look what happened there. And I think you see it also with these longevity obsessives as well. And I don't, like you said, like Chris says, I don't think a lot of it is strongly evidenced. I don't think we know it will have a good outcome. In fact, I don't think people really know. I think it's more just the act of being seen to do it, the act of self-denial. I mean, all these guys, Brian Johnson, the longevity expert who posts all this stuff on social media. You think, well, there's no evidence for anything he's doing. He doesn't peer review anything that he does, but he is sort of just like this Puritan, and he's sort of showing self-discipline, and I think that's what a lot of it is about. A lot of people I speak to hate the buy one get one frees. They are just disgusted by people who they see eating crisps and chocolate and not having the sort of discipline to deny themselves or deny their kids it. That's what I think's at the root of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Chris, reading your very good piece in the Critic about this, it seems like we've got the emergence of a new sort of public health talking point, which is that there's no silver bullet. So in the run-up to this policy, all the usual kind of public health bods were almost accepting that it might not have much impact, but that we've got to do it anyway. Is this something you've detected more than once?
Many, many times with obesity policies in particular. They always build them up when they're campaigning for them, and certainly strongly imply that these measures are going to have a significant impact on actually reducing obesity, which is what anti-obesity policy is obviously supposed to do. And then the moment it comes in, they say, well, of course, there's no silver bullet and we need to have a whole systems approach, is what they say. I've never seen a proper definition of the whole systems approach, but it seems to be just throwing endless policies that don't really have any evidence for them and don't work individually in the hope that together somehow they will have an impact. But that's not really the way to, make policy, just sort of, well, let's try this.
Kind of making a virtue out of either failure or very modest success. Like,
yeah, right. But you don't even get modest success. That's my point in the piece is like, I think obesity now in Britain is 29%. Now, obviously, no single policy is going to bring that down to zero or even bring it down, by a few percentage points necessarily. But you'd hope that, we've done a lot of policies now. The sugar tax, the traffic light warnings, the Jamie Oliver's school dinners, the advertising bans coming up, the ban on positioning so-called junk food at the entrance. And we've done quite a lot of things. You would think that those policies, 7 or 8 policies combined, maybe that would bring obesity down by 1%. That's not asking a lot, is it? Bring it down from 29% to 28% perhaps. But no, apparently we can't even accept that. We just have to go along with this idea, well, there's no silver bullet, therefore don't expect this policy to have any measurable effect, but we're going to do more policies just like it, and they won't be silver bullets either. This is just quackery, really. This is like snake oil, salesman stuff. It's like, hey, try this, it's going to be really good. And you try and go, well, it's not, it's not silver bullet. I didn't say it was going to be a panacea, did I? When you get worse and worse and then eventually die.
What a sales pitch. I mean, it's not a silver bullet. It's almost certainly not going to work. It's going to push up food prices, which I think food inflation is like 5% still. So it's still pretty bad. Candice, why is the Labour Party so wedded to this stuff? I mean, the Unit Party in general, we might call it, have been pretty obsessed with nanny state policies, but there's a particular zeal on the centre-left about this stuff, surely.
Oh, there is. Like I say, it's sort of, I remember, I think it was J.D. Vance who said that he was having lunch with someone, a friend of his, like a centre-left Democrat. I know this is the US, but it's the same sort of thinking. And he said that they were sat in a fast food restaurant, and this guy said, I just see this as a public health emergency. And I thought,
the restaurant?
Yes, yeah. People sitting and eating fast food. And that's what they do. They have a sort of contempt and a disgust. And they look at working class people almost in this paternalistic way, this patronizing way, that we have to save them from themselves. They're just going to make bad choices. I mean, that bizarre idea they came up with a few months ago of state-run restaurants where they can serve everyone healthy food. And they think that people will opt for that. But they do. That's how they see them. They see the poor as just these wraiths, eat all this horrible food and they have to provide good options. I think what's happened is this sort of moralistic tone. They've sort of adopted this moralistic tone to food, to public health, to how people on lower incomes, their diets. But I think one thing I did want to say is when you have got something that's well evidenced, like Ozempic or Mounjaro or something like that, something that does actually help people lose weight, they don't like it because they're like, well, you should have the self-discipline to just stop eating unhealthy food. And they totally reject it, something that actually has strong evidence and works, because it's not about that. It's moralistic at the heart of it.
Absolutely. The one person Mounjaro didn't seem to work on was Boris Johnson, incidentally, to bring it full circle. That was his first political column for the Daily Mail, in which he basically heavily implied that he gave him the squits and wasn't very pleasant. Candice, let's stay with you and talk about a story that you wanted to discuss. Our friends at the Manifesto Club have done a wonderful new bit of research looking at the kind of absurd restrictions that various councils are putting on what is supposedly antisocial behaviour, but sounds like people just enjoying themselves, primarily in the countryside. So these are the public spaces protection orders which councils are armed with to clamp down on a particular type of activity in any locality. The things that have been brought up is shouting in the countryside, stroking ponies, fishing at dawn or dusk. What did you make of this? I mean, we've seen a lot of cases like this, but there's something kind of particularly absurd about policing people's behaviour to that nth degree when they're out in the great outdoors.
I mean, one, it's how is this antisocial behavior? I mean, when I think of antisocial behavior, I think of stealing, robbing, scamming. I don't think of stroking ponies or swimming
It's
or
very sociable
fishing.
with the horse, you know.
How have they been able to define it like that? And two, why are people shouting in the middle of fields in the countryside? Why is this an activity that needs to be policed? I mean, I said to you earlier, is it a form of therapy now? You just
Is
go
it a
to
big problem? that
yeah, you go to a
just
wide
loads
open
of people?
space and you just scream. But all these things are what make the countryside fun. I mean, why do you go to the countryside? You go there to pet ponies. You go there to swim. I don't understand why dawn and dusk are being policed. Like, why is that a particularly bad time to go fishing?
Well, it's between dusk and dawn, isn't it? I think?
Yeah.
So in the night time.
Yeah, presumably it's not just when the sun is coming up or going down. It's like,
So
come
no-
back in
no-
2 hours and
no
you can
night
carry on.
fishing. Well, you're right. I don't
Yeah.
know why that is a problem.
Why? Like, there's no sharks. There's nothing dangerous.
Yeah.
Certainly not in Elmbridge. Banning that.
I mean, as I've said
Secular.
before, in South Africa, they'll tell you, okay, don't go in the sea at dawn and dusk because there are sharks and they're around at that time. They won't stop you from going. I mean, if you want to risk getting eaten by a shark, you can. So, I mean, really, a lot of it is just nonsensical. And I think it's just what happens when you give people huge budgets and very little to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Chris, you grew up in the countryside,
Mm.
so you've probably had a whole, childhood of shouting in fields and stroking ponies. What did you make of this?
Well, I'm very much in favour of keeping townies away. By things like, I can sort of understand why they do ban camping, actually, because people might just turn up there and stay there indefinitely. But the solution there is to say you can't camp for more than 2 nights or something like that, I was quite amused by some of the comments from various council spokespeople the Guardian went to. Because there's some sort of regulation of metal detecting. You need
a license, yeah.
to go detecting. So the spokesman for North East Lincolnshire said the number of applications received show that people continue to enjoy metal detecting responsibly within the designated areas. Canterbury City Council said we fully consulted on this, and we're absolutely certain we have the support of the vast majority of the public. That wouldn't surprise me, to be fair, given what the general public are like. And then someone from Bournemouth Council said the orders can be modified in specific areas for versatile enforcement. Doesn't that sound a little bit arbitrary and capricious? They say, well, we got these laws, but we'll turn a blind eye to them now and again for versatile enforcement. I would rather know what the law is all the time. Maybe make the laws good in the first place, so you don't need to keep changing them.
Yeah.
And then you won't get ridiculous outcomes. Yeah, no, I'm broadly in favour of deterring people from visiting the countryside and petting animals. And get off my land.
But it used to be like the farmers would just scare you. They'd be like, you bring your dog on my land, I'll shoot
Yeah,
it.
shoot.
And so
Warning
you'd be
shots,
like,
yeah.
okay, all right, I won't then.
But now you're no longer allowed to shoot intruders, so we have to have this patchwork of regulations. If we just allowed farmers to use traps and
firearms.
there's firearms that you can. They used to in the sort of 19th century have, I can't remember what they're called, but there were guns that were sort of tied to a tree, and a tripwire would set the gun off and shoot people, which I think is great.
And it's a much more simple solution than a public spaces protection order. The elegant. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways.
Usually, but yeah.
The Manifesto Club Candidates have done a lot of good work on this. It's absurd things that cities do, banning busking or making it so highly regulated. Is this just because councils don't have a lot to do? They haven't got, budget slashed. They just feel the need to. As soon as you give them a power, they'll use it, rather than this being any actual clamour from below for such a hyper-regulated
Yes,
public space.
I think so. I think all the it's often like they'll be the last bastions of woke, like
Mm.
some local council in some like obscure village somewhere, and they'll have come up with some like insane like gender policy, and you'll think, oh my goodness, like I thought woke was dead. But yeah, it's kind of like those soldiers in the World War II, the Japanese soldiers who'd be found on deserted islands. It would be these guys like where the stakes are really, really, really low. Then you get the most just like militant, puritanical people.
Yeah. There was that story in the news the other day about the Barks and Bucks wing of the FA bringing in one of their inclusive language guides. So that the referee would have to ask people their pronouns before they would, the players their
before booking
pronouns
them.
before they would start playing. And like you can't say, come on lads, you've got to say, come on team.
Oh, I saw
Like
that.
this was
yeah.
like something kind of vintage 2020. It would
Yeah.
have been laughed off then, but they're still going like out, you know.
It's amazing how dated that stuff feels.
Yes,
Whenever you
exactly.
see it now, you go like, this is from this week. That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like
You're not over that now,
2017 or
we're-
something.
Yeah.
We're all laughing at that. One thing we're not laughing at though, Candice, is the cost of energy in this country.
Mhm.
There was a report out from the IEA, the other IEA, the ones who look at energy policy, about just how bad it is in Ed Miliband's net zero Britain. So it's been known for some time that we've got the highest kind of industrial energy costs in the developed world. It also seems that we're now second highest in terms of just consumer energy. It's pretty obvious that the elephant in the room here is the very zealous pursuit of net zero that obviously again started under the Tories, but it's still, the baton's been picked up with zealotry by Labour. Do you want to tell us a bit more about this story? And it's odd that it never really features a lot of the time, these energy and net zero questions, when the cost of living is still such a big issue for people.
Yes, I mean, you've laid it out really, really well. But for the second year running, we've now got the highest energy costs in the world. And when Ed Miliband was first appointed to his position, he said the exact opposite. Like, we are going to bring your energy prices down. This is the big promise of the whole switch to net zero, the switch to sustainable energy, that it's going to bring prices down. And I think that the assumption a lot of them make is that wind is free, water is free, so it'll be cheaper, right, than having to dig up coal or mine for oil. But the problem is that there's two things that make energy costs so much higher. One is that they put on so many subsidies and levies to your bill. But two is you do need to maintain an infrastructure that can kick in when sustainable energy is intermittent. So when the wind doesn't blow or the sun doesn't shine, for instance, then you actually do need a big backup infrastructure. And these things together keep energy prices high. So Ed Miliband's promise, experts in the industry were always skeptical about it, because I don't think that there's anywhere that has gone for this and has actually been able to bring energy prices down. It's a completely hollow promise. And I just think they're actually just going to start abandoning this now. And I think that they're just going to expect people to absorb higher and higher and higher energy costs. I mean, I've seen my energy bill just climb. I mean, and we're all supposed to just make a sacrifice. No one cares about the pressure it's putting on businesses and just household budgets.
No, it would suddenly just be, what you need to do is rinse your plates before you put them in the in the dishwasher. What do you make of this, Chris, and the fact that net zero is just the one thing that won't die? This government is willing to at least appear to U-turn a lot of things that used to be quite important to it, whether that's immigration or the economy, but certainly where this is concerned, it'll be the last thing to go, it feels like.
Yeah, I keep expecting Miliband to get sacked. I thought from pretty much day one of this government, there's two people Starmer needs to get rid of. One is Bridget Phillipson, who strikes me as being especially vindictive character, and the other is Miliband, because he's basically bonkers when it comes to this, energy issue and net zero. And yet they were the two people who kept their place in the reshuffle. Everybody else got moved around at least, but they're still there. I think he'll have to go at some point. But I suppose that does partly depend on the general public understanding, what you've just been saying, that this is not just some natural phenomenon that British energy prices keep going up and up and up. It is a result of deliberate policy. Maybe we'll have a blackout this winter. It's not unlikely. We came very close to it, I think, in January this year. That might start focusing some minds, perhaps. But I don't think anybody who knows anything about this knew that it was complete fantasy for Miliband to say, I'm going to bring down energy bills by £300 a year. It was never going to happen. This stuff is, unfortunately, not cheap for various different reasons. But even without the backup issue, I don't think it's particularly efficient. So this is something that's going to get worse and worse, and it just depends whether the public realise it's down to political choices.
Absolutely. And it's been a bit of a theme of what we've been talking about so far, Candice, but the fact that you have people kind of continue to pursue certain policies, even when the evidence points in the other direction, that it's not working, that it is driving up prices. Why was this issue so important to the political class? Why are they clinging to net zero, even as the terrible consequences of it are just piling up all
Yeah.
around us all the time.
I think it's a form of, I think it's a religion. I mean, so I often mention South Africa because I often compare the two countries, but South Africa did go through an energy nightmare.
Mhm.
So they were pressurized by the rest of the world to do this just energy transition, to start moving away from coal-powered stations, which they did, and they tried to do it too rapidly, and they ended up with rolling blackouts. And I mean, whenever I would visit my family, like the lights would just go out and everyone just had to accept that. I mean, the economic cost has been huge until eventually it got so bad that they realized they had to abandon it. And then a new pragmatism set in and they brought new coal-powered power stations back online. It's stopped. All the blackouts have stopped. But honestly, they had to hit absolute rock bottom before they could, before their failure was so evident to everyone. And yet still they denied it. Still they denied that this was an issue. But eventually they had to face reality. And I think that that's what's coming here as well. Right now we're still sort of in fantasy land. And at some point we'll hit rock bottom. We'll be forced to face reality, just like South Africa had to.
And hopefully,
Buy some candles, folks.
Yep.
Stockholm candles for the winter.
practical advice there. Chris, shall we turn to Lucy Letby Corner?
Let's take a stroll over, yes.
Lucy Letby Corner.
So yeah, a bit of Letby news.
Mm-hmm.
This is you won't read this in the Telegraph. This is quite interesting. Even people who are not that interested in the Lucy Letby case. Apparently there are such people. Even they are familiar with the rota issue. Right? Do you follow this case much?
A bit.
You know what I mean by the rota?
Yes, so that was the statistical stuff
Wow,
that they
yeah.
presented in court, that she was on duty.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting to use the word statistical there.
That's one of his triggers.
So this is what got me interested in the case initially. Actually, I didn't know that much about it at the time, but I did know that this was not a case built on statistics. And people get going on about this staff rota, which was shown to the jury, in which you saw every charge on the indictment and which member of staff was around. And Lucy Letby was there every time, and no one else was there anywhere near as often. And I think that's a pretty useful thing for the jury to see, because if I'd been on the jury and hadn't been shown that, one of my questions to the judge would have been, okay, this is all pretty damning. It looks like there were crimes here, but was there anybody else who was around who might have been them instead? And that rota shows otherwise. On the other hand, people have also said, with some plausibility, that well, these are obviously only the incidents on the charts are the ones that she's been charged with, so she's bound to be there. The police are hardly likely to prosecute her if she hasn't been there. So there was this sort of question about, well, maybe there are some missing incidents, right? And one guy in particular, Peter Elston, who is some sort of financial advisor, he kind of portrays himself as a statistician. He went on about this from very early on, and he was in this Channel 4 documentary making the same point. And it's kind of a stupid point to make, because yes, there were deaths when Letby wasn't there, but they were natural deaths, right? They weren't suspicious or unexplained. It would be weird to include them on the chart and go, oh, well, she wasn't always there when babies died, because no one's saying all the babies were murdered, right? It would be like saying, well, what about all the women in Bradford who died when Peter Sutcliffe was at home and had an alibi with his wife? It's like, well, no one's saying that he killed every woman in Bradford.
Exactly. Or saying like all fires are arson, for instance.
Well, no, that's a fair point. Right? So anyway, this Elston character has been emailing Dowie Evans, the main prosecution witness, fairly incessantly, and Dowie has been very patient in replying to this fellow, who is not, in my opinion, a very good faith actor, because he's been accusing Evans of being a liar on Twitter all the way through, sending these fairly polite emails to Dr. Evans. Anyway, Evans decided, all right, you keep asking me about this all the time. I'll have a look. I'll have a look at what whether Letby was around for these other deaths. And he says there were 17 deaths recorded in the 2 years, the whole 24-month period. 4 of these didn't even happen in the hospital, so they don't really count. But it's possible, I suppose, that she might have destabilized them in some way. So he went through them all, and he said that 7 deaths that formed the prosecution case. Obviously, Letby was there for all 7 of those. There were 3 deaths elsewhere. Letby was present when 2 of the 3 deteriorated. One was baby Kay, who she was retried for, but never charged with a murder. One was a very preterm infant. The other was very asphyxiated at birth and died elsewhere several hours after transfer. 4 deaths associated with congenital abnormalities. Letby was present for 3 of them. One had cardiac problems. She was, however, stable, but suddenly collapsed and died when in Letby sole care. One had multiple congenital abnormalities deemed to be incompatible with life. One had multiple congenital abnormalities but was deemed stable before suddenly deteriorating when in Letby sole care. Resuscitation was performed by a consultant paediatrician but was unsuccessful. The other infant died within 2 hours of birth from conditions deemed to be incompatible with life. So in summary, Letby was present when 15 of the 17 babies died, and the other 2 died within literally hours of being born, and no one could possibly suggest. So even if you kind of say that going beyond the 7 babies that we should convicted of killing, let's look at these other 15, which could possibly have involved inflicted harm. Letby was there for for all of them. And Elson didn't really reply to that. This is something that, no one had really thought of doing before, but as it happens, it really looks very bad from a statistical point of view. And you think this guy would come back going, okay, well, statistically speaking, yes, that is quite an unlikely thing to happen. Then Evans carried on and looked at the mortality rates in like the years before Letby was on the prowl, and said the mortality rate per nursing shift was 0.4, 0.5%. This compares with a figure of 0.3% when Letby was not on duty, but when she was on duty, it was 9.2%. That's 30 times bigger when Letby's around. So if you want to go into statistics of this, and as I say, it doesn't mean anything on its own without knowing what the clinical picture of the babies were. But if you want to go into statistics, which people do, it's really, really on a hiding to nothing, because statistics on their own are extremely incriminating. There only may be another possible piece of the circumstantial evidence, and as I say, they were never ever used in court at all. But people have been poking him for a couple of years for this information. He goes, okay, fine, I'll do it. He goes, oh, right, there we are. She was basically always it.
Yeah, there we go. So the whole statistical case actually could be turned back on. Candice, I don't know if you've ever got any particularly strong views on the Lucy Letby debacle. You can say or not say it. On this show, it might gain you a whole new cohort of supporters or haters, depending on what you come out with. But
Jeez, I just get like maternal emotions when I think of those babies. I just get so upset reading about it. It's just the most monstrous thing imaginable. I mean, you've held a newborn, like they're the most vulnerable creatures on earth. And to think that anyone could just subject them, it's horrible. It's horrific. It's why I haven't ever looked into it too deeply, because it is just so upsetting to me.
no, absolutely. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are looking into it a hell of a lot, although not that deeply, as Chris is often exposing his exploits. We should turn to our couple of bonus rounds, bonus questions. Candice, let's start with the theories. So this is one that we've been trialing for a little while.
You keep saying that. I think it's an established feature of the show.
It is.
now.
We will do a jingle at some point. You need to do a jingle, and then we'll make the graphics for it.
Have you got a theory?
There we go. Editor Adam can work his magic. So this is.
So have you got a theory?
Yes. I mean, this is the most sane out of my theories.
Oh, we don't. We
There's
kind of
the-
the
We
least.
want the
sane.
crazy one.
Yeah.
No,
Like
no.
Chris's, turns to slightly spicy quotes from the gay community last week.
I mean, I've got to maintain like the last 2 fans I've got
That's
left.
true. That's true. Anyone who hasn't already been alienated.
Okay, so I've been ranting about this quite a lot. So my latest thing is, and I know I'm going to get loads of hate now, is I think attachment theory is absolute woo. Do you know what attachment theory is? Have you ever come across it? So it's like a kind of psychology of childhood. It's very Freudian, and it basically categorizes people into all these little, are you anxiously attached? Are you avoidant attached? And what they'll say is people who struggle with relationships or whatever, it's probably something to do with when they were babies and little children, and their parents, for whatever reason, they weren't able to attach to them properly. Now, of course, we know that when someone is severely neglected, yes, it's going to have a bad effect. 100%, that's just common sense. But attachment theory, like the people who are the fanatics about it, they have taken it way too far. And they'll say stuff like, even putting your child in nursery is going to cause attachment issues. And you've got all these, what I basically think are cranks, going around saying that the reason that like children get depressed or they get anxious, and that would even question anyway, because we're so quick to label children now, it's because they were put in nursery when they were young and they have attachment issues. It was also why they got rid of all the newborn nurseries in maternity wards, because they said, no, babies need to be attached to their mums from birth constantly, otherwise they're going to get attachment issues.
How does it manifest itself? Attachment issue,
So
or kind of thing that people do in later life.
So it's basically like you might struggle to relate to your wife properly or your husband properly. But it'll be like someone just like maybe having a little bit of issues in their marriage, and then they'll say, no, you've got attachment issues. You need to work on your attachment issues. And they'll bring it all back to how their mum and their dad. So their mum put them in nursery because she had a job. No, that's what it is. She shouldn't have done that. All those babies feel horribly abandoned, and like in later in life, now they're all damaged, and they basically think most people are walking around with some kind of damage. But I see that a lot of religious fundamentalists now have latched onto it, and they wield it against women who go to work. And they're basically like, if you don't want to mother your children 24/7, you are going to cause them psychological damage. And I think that it's become a whole industry now. I mean, it's insinuated its way into various institutions, like maternity wards, for instance. And I don't think there's much evidence for it. I think, once again, like I would say, common sense would tell you if someone's not looking after their child properly, that's going to cause issues. But dropping them off at a nursery where they're probably really well looked after, they're having loads of fun, they get their energy out, they do loads of activities, that is not going to cause them damage. I mean, I've had 3 children, I've put them all in nursery, they are fine. And most parents would tell you exactly the same. And they don't need some psychological expert to tell them otherwise. I also think this is why you have all this helicopter parenting now. And I think that's why parents think that they need to hover around their children 24/7 or they're going to do them some form of damage. And I think it makes parenting way too intensive. It takes all the joy out of it. It means people can never relax. And I think children lack self-confidence to just go off and do their own thing.
I couldn't agree more. I'd go further and say that psychology and psychiatry is both quackery anyway.
Yeah,
For the
that's
most
what
part.
I think. That's
Complete
what I
rubbish.
think. Yes.
Freudianism is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever come across.
It is.
Only beaten by R.D. Laing and his absolutely, literally insane theories. Heal thyself, physician. Yeah, no, there's a load of nonsense. And midwifery actually is largely quackery, I would say as well. And they've got it's like some sort of medieval cult. It's not like a proper science. That all different midwives have completely different opinions, mostly based on their own experience if they've had children. And it's like someone go like, "Oh, breastfeed as much as you want," or "Don't bother breastfeeding," or "Use a bottle." Blah, 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 blah. They just make it up as they go on.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
I completely agree. I feel like midwifery has introduced a lot of superstition into giving birth. I think that actually giving birth now, we have all the scientific tools to make it really easy. Like you can have it pain-free, like your risk of death is very low. But midwifery has come in and said, no, have an excruciatingly painful birth. Do that. Or, it's very bad if you have a C-section. You don't want to do that. And they've sort of driven the science out of it at a time when we have so much available to us. It's so frustrating.
Brilliant. So let's move on to the ban section of the show, where we invite our guests to say if they had to have one clampdown, if they had to have one thing that they would just completely push out of society, one thing that irks them, what would it be?
You are a dictator.
I'll let you have a moment to think, Candice, because I understand that Chris here
Yeah.
has got a new addition to his very lengthy list of things. he
I'm
would
very
like to ban.
lengthy. I come up with a new one more than once a fortnight. So
Mm.
there's just a backlog building up all the
Yeah.
time. I did discuss this one with you at the Reform Conference, but you were too drunk to remember the next day. And no one agrees with me anyway, but I mean this very sincerely. Shower gel. Bottles of shower, plastic bottles of shower, or any kind of shower gel, really. But it's always in plastic bottles. It's not the plastic I've got an issue with, although I do think it's a bit surprising given hysteria about disposable for plastics that shower gel never gets a mention. I am very much a soap man.
Yeah.
I said to myself,
Why does that not surprise me?
I said to myself as a young lad, if I can always afford to have imperial leather in my house,
Yeah.
then I will never feel poor. And I always have had imperial leather. Turns out it's actually quite cheap imperial leather. The advertising made it look more luxury than it actually is. But anyway, so I use soap, imperial leather, if I can get it. And I don't see why anyone else doesn't. It's much easier. There isn't any plastic waste if you care about those kind of things. But my main issue with it, I'm a live and let live kind of guy, right? I wouldn't just say just ban it because I don't personally use it. Do what you like. Except for the fact that the shower gel is now so popular and soap is such a niche product that very often you can't get it at all. Not even a rubbish bar or so. And when you can get it, it's usually Dove, which is rubbish.
It's not
Because
imperial leather, I'll tell you that
It
much.
makes your skin greasier. It does the opposite of what you want soap to do. Because it's a moisturizing soap for women and it just makes your skin greasy. So I don't mind people using shower gel. I don't think they should. I think soap is much cheaper, better in every way. But the dominance of shower gel now is infringing on my freedom to use soap. And I don't like it.
There we go. So a great ban and also a great bit of kind of soap consumer reviews there, which we haven't had on the show before. Candice, if you had to have one ban, what would it be?
Oh, there were quite a few, but so it's in the parenting world, like parenting sphere again. It is, I mean, you guys will never experience this, but it is people who are not my children, adults, calling me mum. And it's always health visitors and midwives and nurses. And you're in some meeting with them about your child and they go, hi, mum. And you're like, oh, I'm not your mum. I like get this irrational. I'm like, my name is Candice. I have a name. I am Candice. And they'll be like, when your child's doing something, like, I don't know, launching themselves off your lap, they'll be like, watch up, mum. And you're like, oh.
Really? They do that?
And I
That's
feel,
so
I just
cringe.
feel murderous. Like, honestly, it makes me, I don't know why it makes me
Is it
so...
because they can't be bothered to remember people's names?
No, I think it's patronizing. I think it's sort of like you're a mum now and you have to be a good mum and I have to remind you every second that you're a mum. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to kill this person. So yeah, if I could ban that, I would. You are not allowed to call me mum unless you are my child.
That's a strong choice.
That's a really, really good choice. Love it. Don't call Candice mum. Don't give Chris any shower gel. Get your tickets to Battle of Ideas and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Last Orders. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you never miss another spiked video. If you're listening to this on your podcast app, make sure you subscribe there and give us a glowing 5-star review. And if you'd like to get in touch with your questions or ban suggestions, email us at lastorders@spiked-online.com.